You know that couple everyone expects will live happily ever after? Jordan and Cody seemed exactly like that. Young, good looking, in love, newlyweds. Jordan, who was very religious, had even saved herself for the Prince Charming of her life. But a week after they said I do, strange things started to happen. Bizarre premonitions started to appear, spirits guiding people, and messages. And also a rather unusual email. All of this completes the recipe for today's episode. Do you want to know everything that happened in this case? Join me, like or comment, even just an emoji. I'm Marcos Campos. Welcome everyone. If you can, join our members club because you help me directly with the content production. If you can't, that's fine. Just do what I said, okay? Don't forget a little emoji. It helps me out. Let me see. Oh, I remember now. How did I forget? I just ate a pachoka. Guys, check out this little pachoka from Growth. It's really good. It's the first time I've ordered it, and I've had a partnership with Growth for a while now. This was my first time ordering this pachoka here. Man, it's really good. Look, just so you have an idea, it has 5 grams of whey protein, right? That comes with it. But it really tastes like a regular pachoka, nothing like those other foods fit. Now, forgive my honesty, but some of them taste like pet food, right? But this one, it's top notch. So that's my tip for you guys. So by using the code MARCOSCAMPOS on the Growth website, you get a special price deal. The link is in the description. Message delivered. Let's get to the facts. Jordan Lynn Graham was born in August 1991, and she grew up with her family in Montana in the United States, near Glacier National Park. A place that, look, guys, will be very important in our story, all right? Her family was made up of her mother, stepfather, and half-brother. They were those super religious types, you know? The church was like the heart of their lives. Jordan went to services every week and took part in everything the congregation organized. Well, in that environment, family, people who lived with her said she was a quiet, shy girl, kind of kept to herself. And Jordan's biggest dream, as her best friend later said, was to find a guy to share her life with in that city where she lived. That was actually the plan for a lot of people, okay? Many girls, many guys. A quiet, small place with people who had clear values. The men worked in the fields and couples got married very young. And right after that, the plan was to have at least 2 children. Jordan took that seriously, right? In her life plans, she wanted to stay true to who she was, right? At least the way she grew up. Well, she waited for that. As I mentioned in the introduction, her virginity. She kept waiting for her Prince Charming, like I said, for after marriage. And look, from what she says, the right man or the prince showed up for her. In 2011, it was basically like this. Jordan, who was 20 years old at the time, crossed paths with Cody Johnson, a 25-year-old guy. It's not exactly known how they met because the sources don't give many details about that part of the story. So I assume it was some casual encounter right there in the city, maybe just by chance anyway, somewhere around there. And Cold was from Kalispell, also there in Montana, and he had a great job at Nomad Global World Communication Services, a technology company. Oh, his friends said he was also a more reserved guy, very responsible. He didn't really like excitement, kind of matching Jordan's lifestyle, right? But now think about it, despite these things, right? Them being a bit reserved and all. Shy, yeah, they had a few things that were a bit different, right? She was really shy from the church and he wasn't that religious. But the chemistry between them was the strong point, and there was an instant passion. And Cold even used to say around that he wanted a girlfriend from the church to make a perfect couple. So it seems like he saw in Jordan a chance to make that dream of his come true. So when they started dating, things got more and more serious. And it seems like the guy really wanted to be a part of Jordan's life. He adopted her family's lifestyle, attended church, and fit in with her friends. And to everyone looking at that situation from the outside, they were the perfect couple. You could see both of them smiling, happy with life. And one thing Jordan used to tell her friends was that she felt super comfortable with him. Mainly because Cole respected her beliefs, right? Especially that one about staying a virgin until marriage. or in her case, even after marriage, right? That way, things seemed to be going smoothly. Everything was fine, just right. So, after a little over a year together, around 2012, Jordan posted on her social media that she was engaged. Her friends were really excited. They were already imagining the wedding, the flowers, everything nice. But on Cole Mayo's side, the feeling was different. At least from his friends, okay? The friends there, the people who spent time with him, they weren't that excited because they thought it was too soon, right? Some even pulled Cole aside and said, dude, wait a little longer, right? Let this relationship grow more before making such a big step. There were even people who said that Jordan didn't seem as happy as things appeared, you know? In public, and some people closer to Cole warned them about this. They would say, is she really happy? You know how it is, right? No one came out and said, hey, wake up, duh. But apparently, according to what people say, it was happening, you know? That thing, that cloud of suspicion. But anyway, guys, opinions are like that, right? Everyone has their own. And the preparations for the engagement went on anyway. In Jordan's social circle, everyone said she was on cloud nine, dreaming about the future with her boyfriend. And she wasn't messing around, you know? She took care of every detail of the wedding by herself, making sure everything was perfect. She hired musicians and ordered a special song for their ceremony dance. Everything else was set, and then the big day arrived, June 29, 2013. It was a Saturday. Jordan and Cody finally got married in a beautiful ceremony. It was really like a fairy tale. She walked down the aisle crying a lot, super emotional. Everything was going as expected, right? Lots of brides cry at that moment, right, guys? But the way Jordan cried was maybe a bit too intense, according to some people. Something that, at the time, might have just seemed like emotion. But later, with everything we're going to learn, it ended up becoming a detail that can't be ignored in this case. And there was one more thing that caught the attention of some guests. While Cody was there, all in love, saying his vows to her, Jordan, on the other hand, wasn't looking at him. She kept her head down the whole time, you know, looking at the floor there. She even turned her face away at times, a bit distracted. Anyone watching this found it at least weird, but things continued. The rest of the party went smoothly. She seemed in love. Later at the party, she danced with him, even to the song she requested. And for everyone, that celebration, that union, there was no reason it shouldn't last forever. But that perfect image didn't last even a blink of an eye. The real story was just beginning. Finally married. A few days after the wedding, Jordan's closest friends started getting a bunch of messages from her. It was just one outburst after another, with moments that made you think, wait, is this real? She said she didn't understand why she got married, that she couldn't stand this life as a wife anymore. Can you believe that? She'd only been married a few days. At first, people assumed that was all it was. Suddenly, maybe it was just some confusing feeling she was having. After all, she had always lived with her parents, right? With her mother, stepfather, brother, and family there. They thought it was just a shock or reality check. And that soon things would settle down and she would start to process and understand the new reality. That's all the passion of dating. But now they were living together, right? There are some particularities. But the days went by, but the complaints didn't stop. Jordan was getting stranger and stranger, you know, and then some details started to come up. According to reports, supposedly on the wedding day, she didn't want to be intimate with Cole, according to reports. I'm talking about it here in a way that sounds like gossip because it's what people who were interviewed said and all that. And it's there in the sources, okay, guys? Well, she would have refused, right, to go through with it. She saved herself for that moment. But when the time came, she didn't want to. All right, but that's it. It didn't go further, okay? The days went by and she kept complaining, avoiding it. I'm on my period. I have a headache. Always to avoid intimate contact. And so the atmosphere between the two didn't get any better. And the situation kept getting more and more tense. Now, well, then we get to Sunday, July 7th. And Jordan and Cole's marriage was turning 1 week old. Cole had planned a quiet day, right? He planned to go kayaking with his wife's bride's stepfather. Now, right? That was in the morning and then later in the afternoon. He had planned to play golf with a friend, but out of nowhere, he decided to cancel both plans. He told those two people that it wasn't going to happen because Jordan had prepared a surprise for him. Nothing suspicious, right? But afterward, he spoke to no one else. On Monday, July 8th, he didn't show up at work. He didn't say anything to anyone, not to family or coworkers. So his boss and a friend there thought it was strange because it wasn't like him. So they decided to stop by his house to see what was going on. And we've already seen several American reports here where this happens, right, guys? This initial welfare check and all that. Well, they got to the house, rang the doorbell several times, and nothing. Absolute silence. The friend checked the garage and saw Cold's car inside. Just sitting there, freezing. That means it didn't leave from there, right? Then the alarm started going off in their heads. So they decided to call the family and the police because something definitely wasn't right. At first, they even thought that Jordan had disappeared too, but it didn't take long for them to find the woman. That's when things got strange. She quickly shared her version of what happened on Sunday, the 7th. According to Jordan, that afternoon, she and Cold went out to get something to eat, just an ordinary outing. They went home and Cold supposedly received a mysterious phone call. She said she didn't know who was on the other end of the line, but Cold kept talking to this person for about 30 minutes or so, and he seemed upset. After that, Jordan says that when they got home, she realized she had forgotten her phone charger. At a house where she supposedly did some babysitting, her phone was running out of battery, so she said she went. It must have been in that area nearby. She said she stopped by that house to get her charger. And then she says that when she got back home, Cold was obviously no longer there. But shortly after that, she said she got a message from Cody saying he was going out with his friends at Glacier National Park. And yes, I mean Glacier National Park. But it's Glacier National Park, okay, which is in Montana. Well, the investigators then obviously asked to see this message that he supposedly sent. But she said she couldn't show it because she always deleted her and Cody's messages after reading them. So the phone's memory wouldn't get full. Oh, come on, Miss Jordan. Are you really going with that story? Just watch. Continuing with her statement, she said that when she was coming back home with the charger she had forgotten, she went there to get it. She saw a black car with Washington plates leaving from near their house, right? Where Cody's car was parked. Well, with that completely vague detail she gave to the police. The officers tried to follow up to see if they could find any vehicle with that characteristic, right? Mysterious vehicle. At first, the investigators didn't really buy into this story, okay? But things changed when they checked Cody's cell phone call log. And look, there really was a call from a Washington number. Naturally, the police spoke with the owner of the number. Even though the stories didn't match, didn't fit together like a puzzle piece, it kind of made sense, right? Suddenly, this car from Washington, the phone from Washington anyway, and this man, the owner of the phone, confirmed that he really had talked to Cody that day, but it was about something trivial. Nothing that raised any suspicion. It was a really quick conversation, just to ask for some tools he had lent to Cody and wanted back. Well, they checked that story and it really was the guy's alibi. They saw that everything matched, that he really wasn't there. He was somewhere else at the time of the disappearance, and they quickly ruled him out of the investigation. I assume the story about the car being there wasn't true, right? But the one who saw it was Jordan, okay? But let's keep looking into it. So, the promising lead about the black car turned out to be nothing, a dead end. With the car lead going nowhere, the investigators turned their attention back to Jordan again. What stood out to them most then was her condition. She was super calm, unconcerned, like, it's alright, my husband disappeared, but maybe that's even a good thing, right? While the police were trying to find Cody, his friends and family, of course, didn't just sit around. Unlike his wife's state, they were agitated, worried, and started to put together a search team. Right there, volunteers, you know. But that made Jordan absolutely furious. Some people who were there said that when she saw there was a group ready to help, she kind of freaked out. She got so angry, she pulled off her wedding ring and threw it on the ground in front of everyone. It was a total meltdown. Maybe she's just nervous, right? She's really anxious, and everyone reacts in their own way, don't they? In certain situations. But for those who follow true crime, guys, when I tell this, what does it sound like? Doesn't this angle seem fishy? It does, doesn't it? 2 days after Cody disappeared, Jordan suddenly showed up at the police station with some news. She said she received an email from an account called... The sender introduced himself as Tony and sent a direct message. Look, stop looking for Cody. He left. According to this, Cody had met him at a place there in the park, right? In Glacier Park. And he said that on Sunday night, Cody showed up there with his friends. He said that Cody talked to him. He needed some time, right? To relax, take a peaceful walk. And does the story in the email go like this? Tony wrote that the guys left together, but after a while they came back. They said they went for a walk in the forest while Cody decided to stroll alone in the park. Then they said they walked away, came back there, and thought that Cody wasn't coming back because he had fallen off a cliff and died. And to top it off, these supposed friends left really quickly without leaving a name, phone number, nothing for Tony to write down. Jordan took this to the authorities as if it were the perfect explanation. Guys, there's really nothing to say about this because it's at least bizarre, right? I mean, I'm hanging out at the park with my friends, saying suddenly the guys split up and returned saying one of them fell off a cliff. So who is this Tony, right? Does he work there? Was he a friend too? Who is this guy? Who didn't call the police? He'll text the guy's wife saying, oh, stop looking for him. He's not coming back. It's ridiculous. I can't decide whether to laugh or cry. But guys, with that email in their hands, of course, the police had a very strong lead. I mean, right, from an information technology perspective, it's traceable, where's it coming from? But I'll talk about that in a minute. What matters here is that they got this information from the email. Of course, they didn't pay much attention to it, to the story that was in there. But there are some points that stand out, don't you agree? Like, in Glacier Park, Cody had gone for a walk there. If we read between the lines, could this email hold the solution to the case? Anyway, guys. So, Jordan decided after everything was happening and the searches were going on, parallel to the investigation, the search by volunteers, friends, family, and everyone else, Jordan decided to help with these searches. But the people who were there, you know, walking around the park and everything, said she seemed kind of distracted, like she was just taking a stroll, you know? She was humming some little songs there, happy, like completely out of sync with what was going on. On the first day, they didn't find any clues, but on the second day, everything turned upside down. They were driving around the park, and suddenly, Jordan started acting weird. It seemed like she had gone into some kind of trance, I don't know, something really bizarre. Suddenly, she told them to stop the car on a remote road near a giant 60-meter cliff away from the park. She said she had a premonition. There wasn't even time to really understand her. So, after the car stopped, she jumped out, crossed a field full of bushes, and went straight to the edge of a ravine there. Moments later, she screamed that she found Cold. Picture it, guys. Her friends shocked as the police rush over to see what's happening, right? Then the authorities, the rescue team was called because the area was very complicated and dangerous. And after they said that, Jordan said that Cold had already mentioned more than once that he actually wanted to explore exactly that place, right there where he lost his life. Everyone was shocked, like how did this happen? When they asked her how she got the idea to look right there, she came up with one of those answers, you know? She said that the Holy Spirit had guided her to her husband's body. It weighed on her. I think it weighed on her shoulders, right? Like, I think she couldn't handle keeping the lie anymore. Meanwhile, Cold's body was taken out of there with a lot of difficulty, right? The terrain was totally rough. A huge cliff full of bushes, branches, and everything anyway. There was a helicopter and a specialized rescue team for that rescue, right? After that, of course, the case blew up on social media really fast. There was even an anonymous account called Who Killed Cold that appeared asking people to share anything related to what happened. And you know how the internet is, right, guys? Everyone had a theory. And then the results of the forensic analysis came in. Because while things were kind of going all over the place, the police, right? The investigation was doing its job. The results came in and confirmed that the injuries that took Cold's life were consistent. Even from that height, right? Impressive. That same day, Jordan posted an emotional wedding photo on her social media. With a little letter, she wrote that she missed him a lot, that she wouldn't go a single day without thinking about Cold. But her family and friends were devastated, guys. But the investigators weren't convinced by any of this. To them, it was all an act. So obviously, they didn't buy this whole inconsolable widow thing, and they kept a close eye on the grieving young woman. Elementary, my dear friends. Now, before I tell you everything that happened in the investigation, all the details, leave a comment for me. Who here thought it was Cold who was going to kill in today's episode? A plot twist that developed naturally, that's not it. So the first thing the police did, guys, was investigate that mysterious email. The technicians traced the origin of where that email came from. There you go. They found out it came from a fake account created shortly before the case with the computer at the stepfather's house. Gore does registration. That's very suspicious, isn't it? But considering where his body was found, the investigators decided to review the security cameras at Glacier Park. And that's when a key point came up. In the footage, you could see Cold's car entering the park, and who was in the passenger seat? Jorda herself. Does that mean both of them were there that night? And if there was any doubt about that, even though the cameras were showing clear evidence, right? Cell phone triangulation confirmed both were there. With this evidence, investigators had no choice. They called Jorda in to testify, intending to confront her with this new evidence and all the lies she had told up to that point. In the end, Jorda couldn't handle the pressure and finally admitted that she had been lying the whole time. But she had her own version of the story. This time, she said it was Cold who insisted on walking that dangerous trail, assuring everyone that he knew the way from Core. In the middle of the walk, then, Jorda decided to be honest and said she didn't want to be married anymore. She also said that she was afraid of being intimate with him. And that ended up turning into an argument that later even escalated into something physical. She said A grabbed her arm tightly and she tried to break free. She eventually managed to get away. And that's when, as he turned his back, Jorda went there and impulsively ended up pushing her husband away. But instead of just pushing the man away, Cold lost his balance there and fell straight into the ravine. In other words, they had a gigantic national park. To talk right at the edge of the cliff. It didn't take long for Cold's friends and family to start questioning Jorda's little story. Here, just making a comment, guys. It's like the marriage was really on the edge of a cliff. There was no need to take it literally, right? For the people who thought this whole story was strange, it didn't make any sense, right? Cold has always been a cautious guy. He would never risk his life, as I said, by walking around such a dangerous place, especially at night. But the real turning point in the case came when Jorda's brother told the police that she asked him to lie. She didn't want him to mention anything about the body that was found. This detail just increased suspicion about her. Honestly, there were already many suspicions. It was obvious. Even so, Jorda kept insisting that it was all just an accident. It was already too late. The legal process continued. On Monday, September 9, 2013, she made her first court appearance before a federal judge. She was formally charged with second-degree murder, and despite everything, she stuck to her original story without changing a word. A deadly conviction, isn't it? A few days later, the trial began before a grand jury, which had no doubts. There was enough evidence to formally charge Jordan with her husband's death. But her situation got even worse when the prosecutor decided to raise the charge to first-degree murder. And he also added a new charge for lying to the authorities. Now Jorda faced possible life in prison. Even so, the judge allowed her to await the final trial under house arrest, with an electronic ankle monitor. In addition, he ordered her to undergo a mental health evaluation and to follow any treatment recommended by the specialists if necessary. The first hearing then took place on October 13, 2013. That was the day Jordan heard the charges against her one by one. First-degree murder, second-degree murder, and making false statements. The jury had access to the recording of Jordan's confession. In it, Jordan admitted that she pushed the cradle, but she insisted that it wasn't her responsibility. It was an accident. According to her, everything happened too fast, and her only intention was to move the cradle away. During the argument, Jordan insisted she wasn't a criminal, claiming she only pushed him. And what happened afterward was a tragedy. But what really weighed against her were the testimonies of her own friends. As witnesses, they revealed the couple's main problem was their sex life. That's where the fight started. I'll discuss this more later. I keep wondering what these guys were doing at the edge of a cliff. That's really strange, isn't it? Jordan refused to be intimate with Colt. And she even received messages from close friends saying that he probably wanted to do all kinds of perverted things that she didn't want. She felt pressured then because of that, as if it was her duty to make him happy in that way, even though she was unhappy. And those messages were completely different from the texts she sent right after the wedding, in which she seemed excited and full of plans. For the prosecution, this was another important piece to understand the whole dynamic of their relationship. Pretty complicated until the tragedy happened. Well, when it was the defense's turn, they tried to change that narrative, that she was a completely unstable person, right? All troubled and everything. So they showed the wedding videos showing Jordan smiling, all happy, right? At least apparently. In an attempt to break down the idea that she was an unhappy person who wanted to leave the marriage. In addition, the lawyers portrayed Jordan as a naive young woman, socially immature, shy, and with difficulties relating to adults. But that strategy convinced a lot of people. In early December, after 4 days of trial, Jordan, who was 22 years old at the time, accepted a plea deal with the prosecution. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, and in exchange, the first-degree charges and those other things like lying in the process and everything else were dropped. The deal came at the last moment, okay? When the jury was about to meet to decide her fate. With that, the sentencing was postponed and set for 3 months later, on March 27, 2014. On the day of the sentencing, then, the courtroom was full. Besides the family members involved, Cody's friends also attended, eager to hear what Jordan's fate would be. At the start of the hearing, the defense attorneys tried their last move again. Right then, submitting a motion to annul the plea agreement. They claimed that the prosecution acted in bad faith and pressured the judge to impose a harsher sentence, even after dropping the more serious charge. But the attempt to change what was already sort of set in stone, the judge rejected. When it was her turn to speak, Jordan didn't even try to justify herself. But she also didn't show any remorse. She said she didn't have any answers to explain why she didn't make different decisions that night. She said she was overwhelmed by shock and panic and couldn't explain what happened otherwise. At the verdict, the judge did not mince words. He pointed out that Jordan lied several times and changed her version of the facts repeatedly. And most shockingly, she never showed any remorse. For him, it was clear that she had no respect for the law or for society. In the end, the sentence was 30 years in prison without parole, plus 5 more years of supervised release. The defense tried to reduce the sentence to just 10 years, while the prosecution wanted something between 50 years and life imprisonment. The judge also prohibited Jordan from profiting from the whole story and ordered her to undergo psychiatric treatment. And he also imposed a payment to cover the costs of recovering Cody's body. And as had happened since Cody's death, Jordan was taken out of the room without showing any emotion, as if the weight of the situation didn't affect her. A few years after the sentence, her lawyers tried to appeal again, arguing that the 30-year sentence was excessive. However, the appeal was rejected and the judge's decision was upheld. Jordan continued to serve her sentence, showing no signs of remorse or changes in her behavior. The question, after all of this, at least for me, is what really happened that night. How did they end up there? Right at the edge of a cliff? This leaves plenty of room for speculation, doesn't it? We'll never really know the truth, right? Since she keeps insisting on this accident thing, does it have any basis? Do you think they went there suddenly for something? To have an adventure there? She was always refusing, if you know what I mean. Could it be the weight of the beliefs she grew up with? Maybe that could have also influenced her decision, you know? I can't get divorced. So if I can't get divorced, I'll have to do something. And then it's that story, right? Like one sin weighs more than the other, right? You can end your husband's life since you can't leave him. Anyway, just speculation. These are things I've been thinking about here, and I want to know your opinion because there are a lot of directions we could go with this, right, guys? A lot of possibilities. Like I said, a totally avoidable crime and only one certainty. Not everything is what it seems. Therapeutic space. The comments are for us to chat. Thanks for your company. A kiss from Ruivo. See you next time.